Hi everyone, this is an online lecture for supply. In this lesson, we'll learn about how does suppliers or sellers behave. How do they sell their good or service? What will cause them to sell more or less? So let's begin. Now we're going to discuss about supply. Now I mentioned in lecture that when you talk about supply, you must put on the thinking hat of a producer, a supplier. And the way that they think is different from that of a consumer. Now, the law of supply works differently from the law of demand. In the law of supply, when the price is high, consumers are willing to sell more. Now, take note that we discussed in lecture that the producer is a profit maximizer. All right, the producer is there to produce. The firm is there to produce because they want to make money. So when the price is high, they are very willing to sell more. So when the price is high, quantity supply is high. Okay, when the price falls, the producer is not so interested to sell because the price is lousy. So quantity supply will fall. Okay, so this law of supply is distinctively different from the law of demand. Now this is shown on the diagram. In this case, the price goes up. The supply curve, which is now upward sloping from left to right. Now we always see things from left to right. I explained this earlier. So when the price goes up, you can see that the corresponding point on the supply curve, all right, there's an upward movement from point A to point B. Now observe the corresponding change in quantity when there's a movement, upward movement from point A to point B. Quantity supply increases from Q1 to Q2. Okay, so when there's a change in the price level, there's a change in the quantity supply. Okay, so in principle, this is similar to how we studied demand curve. All right, the change in the price level will cause a change in quantity supply. But take note, price change and quantity supply change, now it's direct. What do I mean by direct? That means price goes up, quantity supply will go up. Okay, because of the law of supply, which is different from law of demand. Okay, so the relationship is now direct. Price goes up, quantity supply goes up, and vice versa. Now we talk about a shift. All right, the principle is the same. At the same price, supplier may choose to sell more. From S1, the curve can shift right to S2, meaning an increase in supply, or shift left, meaning a decrease in supply, even when the market price did not change. Now, what can cause a supplier to sell more or sell less, even when the price does not change? These are some of the factors that cause a supply curve to shift left or shift right. Okay, we talk about this in lecture. The price of productive resources, that means the components that the producers have to buy to make the product or to manufacture the product. Technology and productivity that will affect how much the producer can produce at an ongoing price. The number of suppliers entering the market or leaving the market, and the price of related goods produced. Okay, all these can affect the supply curve and shift the supply curve from to the left or to the right. And all this is a shift, meaning that the market price of the product has not changed, but yet the supply of the good is lower or higher, depending on what is the event. The number of suppliers can affect the amount of supply in the market. Obviously, the increase in number of suppliers will cause the supply to go up and vice versa. All right. Now, this is the end of part 1 of demand and supply. Please take your time to revise and to look at your tutorial questions. We'll be dealing with more questions in class as well. This is an important chapter, so please make sure that you understand this topic very well. Next week, we will put demand and supply together and to look for an equilibrium point whereby the demand curve meets the supply curve. See you. Now, technology and productivity also has influence on how much the producer can produce. So improvement in technology, all right, will cause productivity to go up. Okay, that means the supply of the product can go up. Now, we mentioned some example in lecture, such as the manufacturing of LCD panels. It used to be very expensive, but when there's improvement in technology in the production of LCD panels, okay, LCD panels prices have dropped significantly in the past few years. Okay, so this is one example where technology can affect the supply of the product. Now, cost of production is one of the major factors affecting producers' decision to produce. Okay. Now, cost of production comprises of things that the supplier needs to pay in order to produce that good, such as labor, that means pay the wages of workers, cost of the raw materials that it needs to produce the good, and maybe cost of financing and taxes. Okay, cost of production is one major factor that will cause the supplier to produce more or less. So when the cost of production goes up, the producer cannot afford to produce so much anymore. So supply of the product falls. Okay, so cost of production and supply are inversely related. When it becomes more expensive to produce, producer produce lesser. Now, sales tax is one of the non-price determinants of supply. What's a sales tax? Now, it's a tax that's levied by the government on the selling of that particular good or service. Okay. Now, when a sales tax is levied, it increases the seller's cost of production, right? It adds on to the cost. Okay. Now, when this happens, cost of production goes up. It becomes more expensive to produce. The seller cannot afford to sell as much. Okay. So as a result of the sales tax, supply of the product will have to fall. Okay. That means the supply curve shifts left. All right. So remember, a sales tax increased the cost of production for the sellers, which decreased the supply of the product. Price of related goods produced can affect the supply of a certain good or service. Now we have this story over here. Now, supposedly the farmer, who is a seller, produces carrots and potatoes. Okay. Now, when we are studying the market for potatoes, the price of potatoes did not change. What changed is the price of carrots has gone up. Okay, the price of carrots has gone up. Now remember, when we talk about the behavior of sellers, they like to sell things that can fetch a higher price in the market. So to the farmer, when carrots fetch a higher price, they will prefer to produce more carrots than potatoes. Okay, so for potatoes, the price of the potatoes in the market did not change, but the supply will fall. Okay, because the production of potatoes will fall when the price of a related goods being produced has gone up. Okay, so what we are seeing here is farmers or the sellers switch over to produce more carrots because carrots are fetching higher price, and potatoes, okay, production will begin to fall. Did the price of potatoes change? No. Okay, but the supply will fall because the market price of a related good that the seller is producing has gone up. Right? Now, this is all I have for you. In the next lesson on equilibrium, we'll put demand and supply together, and we see how the equilibrium price in the market is being derived. Right? See you next lesson.